Good morning, Donald. You there?
Hello. Okay. Can you hear me?
Man, I can hear you just
Hold
fine.
on. Let
Can
me
you hear
turn
me?
you up. There. Speak again.
All right, how about now?
Yeah, now I can hear you. I had my speakers turned down.
Ah, wonderful. Good morning, Donald.
Good morning, Eric.
Man, it's great to see you today. Thanks for joining.
Not a problem. Let's see if I'm in the camera well enough.
Oh man, you look beautiful.
Hey, this is the third attempt for something this morning. Uh,
Oh, okay. So third time's a charm?
yeah, third time's a charm. I mean, just trying to. I am not a real huge tech person, so uh, I was going to do it with a laptop. I finally got the laptop. I couldn't get everything going in the laptop. It's fighting me. So I had it on an iPad, and my son came over here, which is my service manager, and he rigged the camera up, and we put it on my main computer. I used my desktop, and then we had to download Zoom and go through Zoom. I mean, it
Oh
just
my
came up a couple
gosh.
minutes ago. I've been working on this for half an hour.
Oh my gosh. I wanted to ask you, what the biggest challenge you were facing today was, and I think you just, explained it real well.
Biggest challenge is keeping up with technology and the changes. Um, I mean, if you saw the changes we do air conditioning, HVAC, the the efficiencies we can attain today were unbelievable 15 years ago. But with it comes unbelievable. Don't always keep up. And it's the deal of, okay, I'm going to send all the new guys to all the schools and I'm just going to let them do it. And I'm going to start on my way out the door. So,
Oh, I mean, that sounds brilliant. Now, I want to be fair. For when you were saying that it was unbelievable, you froze there for a second. I don't know if that showed up.
okay. Um, the increase in efficiency is unbelievable. Just simply because, okay, if you go back, okay, 2000, 24 years ago, 25 years ago, uh, 12 SEER was high efficiency. Well, that was SEER 1. Now we're into SEER 2. So that would be in today's efficiency about an 11, and that was the highest. Well, we can do units over 20 now. Now, SEER is, but the technology and the expense has gone crazy.
So, is the technology helping reduce expense, or is it maintaining the same type of returns by implementing technology, or the by having technology to implement it just makes it so much easier and better, and the information is more real time, and yeah, how's that been?
Okay, information is real time. Okay, that's another subject. When
Okay.
dealing with air conditioning equipment, the efficiencies we get at the cost are at the edge of not paying back. In the
Okay.
life cycle of the equipment, it won't pay for the energy savings that it offers.
Got it.
And that's the negative. And so the only thing we can settle on is it actually gives increased comfort. So you've got to go that. Now, when it comes to electronic technologies, we've got the issue of, I mean, okay, let's go with accounting software.
Got
30
it.
odd years ago, I bought um, QuickBooks, or you wouldn't call it QuickBooks at the time, it's called something else. Um, and it was like a hundred and some odd dollars. And so as time went on, I guess we're into the interview now, no matter what.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
anyway, as time went on, it's well, if you want to use this portion of it, you're going to have to lease it now. Well, it went from where I bought it for a hundred some odd dollars to now I'm leasing it for $300 to $400 a year.
So, okay, I have a question for you then. It's kind of that. a lot of companies are changing into that subscription model, right? I think
Hmm.
you just kind of explained it. Rather than just go and buy it for the year and have it until I don't want to use it anymore, or I want another one. Now every month I have to pay them a little bit every month. And
And
over
it
time,
goes,
like while a month it's cheaper, but over time I'm paying more than I would have paid before, right?
oh, you're paying tons more. And then, um,
So my question, sorry, my question for you is, have you in your business implemented any subscription models?
in the Kerrville office, no. In the Waco office, yes.
Okay,
Um, and it's okay. One of the models they say for making money in the HVAC industry
here we
is
go.
by in some way getting your customer to subscribe to you, if you will, to where they're paying $10, $20, $30 a month, and they get the following benefits. I and that is, if you go to any schools, any classes on how to make money in this industry, that's what they preach. And for Kerrville's market, and Kerrville is a different market than the Waco market. Kerrville is an older community with a lot older people. Here, it's not quite as accepted. It is, but not to the extent that it is in Waco. There, it's normal. So I try to follow the norms, but it's what I'm also comfortable or not comfortable with. Because to me, some of that is basically, I view it as a scam.
Okay.
There's so many scams in this industry, in all industries out there, that I don't like it. I mean, I sit here and I will tell you one thing that just bugs the crud out of me is duct cleaning. It's the biggest scam that's come down the pike in a long time. You see advertisements on the TV. You see it's a scam.
I get
Um,
them on my Facebook page all the time.
yeah, and it's basically, I use the analogy of, does, when your car goes down the street, does the dirt come off of it? The answer is no.
Right.
Well, dust settles in ductwork, uh, and it doesn't come back out. We had a customer in Comfort. They since closed the plant, moved away. HM Goucher, the mat makers, and they had a plant there, and the lady had spent $8,000 getting the duct cleaned, and I laughed. And she says, "Why?" I said that they don't clean it. And they says, "Well, you should have seen all the stuff they got out of it." I said, "Follow me." I took the lady who was the plant manager up on the roof. We took a panel off the air conditioner. I said, "Stick your head in and look down into the duct." There's a pile of trash in the bottom of it. She said, "But they cleaned it." I says, "They can't clean it. It's a scam." Now,
So so that's duct cleaning. Talk to me a little bit. You'd said it just doesn't feel right to do like a subscription type model.
yeah,
So what is, I mean, I think that's I think it speaks to your character, right? On what you feel comfortable with and what feels right and doesn't. And so if you don't mind speaking a little bit more to that, like um I'm sure that with that type of attitude, word of mouth probably gets around pretty good that you're a good, fair, honest man.
it does, but it doesn't.
Okay.
Okay. Um, okay. First of all, as a business owner or manager, you have to create a culture within your business. If you basically are honest and reasonable with your prices, it trickles down. The employees see how you do it and they either embrace it or they don't. The more honest and level you are, the more they will embrace your culture. Um,
And what would you think if I were to ask you what the culture is you have versus the culture that you want to set? How close are they to each other? And how much of that, I mean, you've been open for a while. I want to start, congratulations, right? I mean, when you look at the statistics of businesses that start and stop to make it to the 30-year mark, 29, right? 30-year mark here,
38 years.
38 years, 38 years, almost 40 years in the business. Um, that is amazing. Congratulations on that. And so you got to have good employees for that to happen. You've grown, opened up another location in Waco. So, Explain to me, like, it sounds like culture was a very purposeful thing with you.
Culture and leadership have to be purposeful, and people don't understand what leadership is. They don't understand what culture is. I was fortunate in having three good bosses, one fantastic, one really good, and one pretty good boss in smaller companies, and they helped me learn. And by doing that, I respected them just simply because of the way they handle themselves, the way they interacted with me. So yeah, I got a good deal there. I had some other bosses whom one I respected, but ethically I didn't really like some of the things he wanted me to do. Another one I had zero respect for. He was a do what I say, not what I do kind of person, and that I could see it, and it's just he was amazed when I quit, and well, you shouldn't be, but you have to create a culture within your business, and there's a lot to learn in doing that. I mean, this what didn't happen overnight. I mean, I stayed a very small business for a long time. It was a long time before it really started growing. Um,
What changed? What was the change between being a small business versus then starting that growth? What changed?
Deciding to do it,
Really?
deciding
That it was
to
that
take the
easy. It was that
steps
easy.
okay. Every business has tiers. Um, the HVAC business has tiers. It's easy to make the jump from one to two. I'm in the top of the second echelon, and I've been nudging getting to the third.
So what are those tiers, if you don't mind?
And the first tier is um, basically you uh, are doing it yourself, and maybe you have one or two people helping you. That's
Got
the
it.
first tier.
Got it.
The second tier is you become a boss, put your tools away, and you lead and you go from there. The third tier is when you are hiring people for everything from sales, everything. And you basically, all you do is manage, and you don't do any of the sales or anything else like that. That's the third level. I've been nudging that, nudging that, nudging that.
So
Um,
when you say nudging that, do you mean like, because you said earlier that the difference between becoming small and growing was just deciding to do it. So my question to you now is, when you say nudging, does that mean you're kicking the can down the road till you decide to do it? Or you just haven't been able to make that decision to do it yet?
it is, well, okay, a lot of things go into that. One, it takes a lot more cash and capital to do that.
Got it.
Um, the second one is finding the right people. Can I find someone to do that job? Yeah, but several people, I found a couple people, and when I started checking their background, it was a deal of don't get this guy because he talks, but he doesn't do anything. And so it's just finding the right person. Um, and I am not by personality that aggressive. I saw one guy in my long career in this industry. I worked for a manufacturer one time, and I called on as a salesman a guy who used to be an installer for me when I was in another company. And he had gone out on his own, and he had grown and blown. And this is a guy that didn't even graduate high school. He was a dropout. And he had a very vibrant, great business, people selling for him, people doing everything, and it was going great. He had one advantage, and it was the Houston market. When you have a large market, it's easier to grow. It's easier to make those jumps sometimes. The downside is it's a lot harder to start in those markets. Once you start and established, it's easier to go big. In a small market, It's harder to start, harder to grow, but it's a lot less competitive, I guess. I
Mhm.
don't know. It's every market's different, every area is different. I mean, I grew up in San Antonio. I worked in the air conditioning business in San Antonio. I did it in Houston, and then we moved here. And I love it here. It's just it's a difficult market.
So, if when I was doing my research on you, and there's not a lot out there about you, Donald, I will say. So you've done a good job staying off the radar. Um, but I might just try to share it with you. Let's see if I can. I want to pull something up if you don't mind.
Okay.
Let's see here. Because you're talking about kind of growing and entering markets, and so I wanted to show you David. That's your son, yes?
David's my middle son. Yes, he's the one that manages Waco.
Awesome. Well, we'll get into that here in just a sec too. Okay. Can you see a screen that has you in it?
Yep, I see me there.
All right. So this was, I guess, about 12 years ago ish.
Yep.
Let's see.
David was working in Kerrville at the time.
Prepared. So here we are in the shop. I'm Donald Kampfenkel. I'm the owner of D&D Mechanical. Started the business up in 1986. We're 27 years later, going strong, 5 trucks, working on being the best year ever. It's running at a close tie to '09, which was our best year.
Okay, real quick, just a quick pause there. There's a reason why I pulled it up, but I'll stop it right there. Best year ever was coming up. I'm assuming that that has like long passed and you've blown past whatever this best year was. Yes?
We have gone well past that year. Yes. Um,
Awesome.
I mean, we've had, in any industry, in this industry, it's bump years. Last year was a down year industry wide in Texas because last year, people won't believe it was very mild weather last year here. And we live on adversity. And so, no, it's this year, I'm looking up. Derek, my youngest son, who is the service manager here, just sold two fairly high efficiency systems this morning. So we're tickled pink for this time
Nice.
of year. That is fantastic. So,
Looks like Derek's earning his keep.
yeah, well, my boys, they tend to earn their keep because I was a mean daddy. Owning
So,
your own
so
business allows you to do things that other people can't do. I made my boys work starting from when they were 11. They spent 2 years with me, and then the third year, they were working with adults making minimum wage. And for a 13-year-old to make minimum wage is unbelievably good money.
heck yes, it is. And I applaud you for that, right? I think sometimes business owners, they might not want their kids in their business or working in their business, or their kids have so many more opportunities, that they take advantage of and they kind of miss out, I think, on that one, what I would consider a life goal skill that's right in front of you, and to take advantage of that, I think is amazing. But let's watch a little bit more of that of this video, if you don't mind.
Okay.
So far surpass anything done back there. That's great. Here we go.
Air conditioning refrigeration, sheet metal business. I am the only person I know of with actual degree in air conditioning in Kerrville, Texas, Kerr County. I've been doing this since September 12th, 1972. I love the business. I love air conditioning, sheet metal, refrigeration. Uh, it's funny. I'll go in someone's house and I'll sneak a peek at their air conditioner. I go into a business and kind of look and figure out how they get it done. When you do something your whole life, it becomes kind of part of you, and I enjoy it. And I have the privilege of doing something I actually enjoy. D&D is an answer to prayer.
All right. I wanted to stop there. Because you've been talking about treating people fair and honest, and you've been talking about um finding the right person to hire and making sure that culture is just right, and that kind of starts with you. And then but you had talked about starting there. You went to San Antonio, Houston, and then there, and then in here you had talked about kind of answering to a prayer. And so I wanted to just see if you could expand on that a little bit more and kind of like, um, how did that work out?
How did the prayer work out?
Like where were you? What was going on at your life at that time, to bring you to a point to where it would take you from, where you were, what you were doing, and, you're doing something you enjoy doing to, you know, going out and venturing out on your own and trying to make it yourself. And I know having some mentors, you had mentioned kind of your mentors or bosses before, having them, I know is huge. And so just kind of how did all that come about?
Okay, you have to go back to the mid 80s. Oil was down to $10 a barrel. Houston was just shedding jobs like you wouldn't believe, because Houston, while it's the energy capital, lives on exploration and drilling, not really on production. And so jobs were going away, oil was down, and we'd had 2 to 3 years of decreasing income. And so I had started looking for other jobs. And I had a job offer from the biggest contractor in Richmond, Virginia. He had offices in Richmond, Raleigh, North Carolina, and Washington, D.C. Huge guy. And we prayed about that job offer. And I was a little unsure, and the wife was praying about it. And she says, "Hey, this is the way it came back answered. We go in business for ourselves. You don't take the job." So I said, okay. And I turned in my 2 weeks notice, and we were
Was
fixing
this the
on,
boss was this the boss that was surprised you quit?
yes.
Okay, keep going. I could tell by
And
the little
so,
smirk you had there.
it was, I turned in my notice, and then they tracked me down. It was a big complex. We had 3 buildings right there all together. And he paged and he got me over there an hour or two after I gave it to him. He didn't, it took that long to read it. And he talked to some other people. And when I got in those offices, it says, okay, why are you doing this? I says, well, you basically promised the world and delivered diddly squat. And so basically they gave me half an hour to clear the building.
Wow. They still gave you your 2 weeks worth of pay though, right?
No,
What? What?
basically what they said is, you're quitting, but we're not accepting your 2 weeks working here. You're done right now. And then we made the first trip over to Kerrville to find a house the following day or two. We're very discouraged, very discouraged. So, but it was a deal of, at that point, we were committed. I didn't have a job anymore. So we went forward and did well. I mean, I can't tell you it's all been a bed of roses. There's been at least 3 times I could have filed bankruptcy. Um, it's
So explain one of those times. Was it a risky decision? Was it just, living on the ebbs and flow of that like you had said earlier, you live kind of in that, what was it, that adverse type lifestyle that
Well, okay. We live on adversity because the weather determines a lot of business. The economy determines the amount of business out there. Right now, we are struggling because there's one man out of Austin who we've now got a judgment against for almost $60,000 of money he owes me. Well, if you take $60,000 of cash out of a business this size, it hurts. And so while you can have times like that happening, one time it was when we were invading Afghanistan. I
Mhm.
got, times were really tough here, and I got a call with a job offer from Halliburton to go to Afghanistan out of the clear blue. And it was very tempting by what they were promising. And, do I let somebody else run it, me go? Do I stay? What do I do? And their deal is, basically you have 2 weeks off with travel expenses 3 times a year. And what everybody does, they just have their wife meet them in Europe. And I mentioned that to my wife, Denise, and she went, yes. But I decided in the long run, after praying about everything else, is no, I wasn't going to do it. And I'm happy I didn't, because I would have missed a lot of my boys growing up. I salute our military because they live and do things without their family there, which is a very tough thing. I mean, you miss your kids growing up, you miss your kids' soccer games, their little victories here and there, and their defeats. But I would have missed a lot of my boys spending time with me. All my boys did not like it at the time of having to go to work with dad. But now, years later, when my baby is 33, they all say it was the best thing in the world. They loved it. It's like one time with David, we were in downtown San Antonio picking up parts, and I look up and there's the Tower of the America. I says, hey, you want to go up there real quick? So we made a little side trip, went up to the Tower of America during the middle of the day, and he still remembers the trip. He had a blast.
That's awesome.
It's just a matter of, I guess my family's been important enough. I've invested in them. Work is fine, but family's more important. So, I have very few regrets. I mean, could I be bigger? Yeah, my vision was for being a lot bigger. Am I happy with what I am? Yeah, I'm sitting here fat and happy about to retire. Okay.
Okay, so let's first off, thank you so much for sharing, so much. I know that, it can be hard sometimes to admit things admit things happen that make it real hard to continue moving forward. But, having that resiliency and that, faith, it sounds like really helped push you forward and dangling a carrot, right? Traveling, making a lot of money. I mean, those carrots, that's kind of that temptation, right? And it takes a lot of conviction and staying true to who you are. And so I think that's wonderful. But we're talking about business here. We're talking about growing a business. Um, so you have 3 sons,
Yes.
right? You'd said you had visioned the Donald Kampfenkel empire, right? And at the
Well,
moment, it's a castle, right?
it was okay. My vision was always to build the business and sell it and then do something different or maybe do it again. That was always the vision. It never really happened that way. Um,
Why not?
that goes into I had the most wonderful parents in the world, just no sophistication. Both were born on the farm, dirt poor. In my mom's family, they rented the farm until they left the farm. My dad's family, they were dry dirt sharecroppers and unbelievably poor. They had one good crop. Okay, we're going to do something. They went down to Donna in the valley, bought a farm, got cheated out of their irrigation rights, and
Mm,
lost the farm.
mm.
Um, never had the sophistication that some people have in the education. One thing I lacked all through my high school, college career was a lack of really good counseling. I had one good counsel session that put me onto the track that I followed. And it was a deal of, hey, I want to go vocational my senior year because, I don't see a future in this. And I said, okay, you don't want to do what you're talking about. You want to go industrial. Let me find you a job. He found me a job in a sheet metal shop, and that started me into this business. I started as a senior in high school sweeping the floor of a sheet metal shop, and it was a good thing for me. It grew me up because I got into an adult environment, and I went that way. So, see if I can figure out how to mute this thing. Well, it answered anyway.
Well,
Um,
okay. So let me. So you have three sons. So one of them took off to Waco. Is are you grooming the other two to sprout off and branch out, or it's
they've
what they
kind
want
of
to
okay.
do,
All three of them said they didn't want to be in the air conditioning business.
and they're all three in it now.
Well, yes, the oldest, he when he got married, she initially was going to move here. She was in Houston. He was here, and they met doing hurricane repairs in Galveston. And when he married her, she was going to move here. But then, right before they got married, she got a job offer she couldn't turn down there. So I said, Daniel, you can find a better job than I can offer you in half an hour there. I think he spent 2 hours and got a really good job. 3 years after that, he had moved up and was a controls manager for a big, huge mechanical contractor. In doing that, then his wife said, hey, you need to go and finish your education. So he got his engineering degree, and now he's got his engineering degree. He's done the basics. He just has to do a little bit of paperwork to get his professional engineering license from the state of Texas. But
Mhm.
he's already the office coordinator for a multi-office engineering company for the Houston office.
Wow.
So he's growing up in that. So that's fine. I mean, David got a degree in music education. So he's doing air conditioning.
Awesome. So
Derek is taking classes in business management. He was the closest to doing what he went, but he got burned out on that.
this was David?
No, this is Derek, my
Derek.
youngest.
Derek.
He's the
Okay.
service manager here.
Got it. And then Daniel's an engineer in Houston.
Yes,
And David. Okay, and you're Donald. And then I see a Denise on your website. Is that
yes.
where the D&D came from?
Okay. Originally, it was D&D was for Donald and Denise,
Got
but
it.
with the back of my mind, we could always have it Daniel and David.
Okay.
Of course, then Derek came along, and let's not forget the dogs, Dottie, Dusty, and Dougie.
Wonderful. So,
Um, it was a deal of one of the things, I don't remember if I learned it in a school or it goes back to college, was a deal of in naming your business, you don't want to name it with your name. So many people do in our industry name it with their name. The problem is then you can't sell it because if it's Donald Kampfenkel air conditioning, well, if Donald Kampfenkel's not there, it doesn't work.
okay, so you chose not to sell it anyway. But let's say what are your son like your sons, are they too much in it where you're not even interested in selling it anymore? Is that still an option for you? Is that
Well,
still
I basically promised it to them.
okay?
David is talking to the bank right now about buying Waco from me.
Okay.
And soon as that's done and we get all the nuts and bolts figured out, we'll just do almost a copy of it and sell Kerrville to Derek here. And then I will become retarded.
Well then, well, congratulations. And what's the time frame of this epic plan?
Hopefully later this year.
Okay.
Uh, my 5 years ago, I put an end date on it, which that end date is just about a month and 4 days from now. But
Okay.
we're not going to do it by then because we're to the point where I can sell it to the boys and retire in a resemblance of comfort. I
Hmm.
mean, it's not the Taj Mahal. All three of my boys have bigger houses than I do, but
I think that's part of your modest bringing and hardworking and ethics. And, if treating people fair usually means that you're not really going to be one to waste or overspend yourself.
well, it's well, okay, part of staying in business, and and I tell people the hardest thing to do is learn how to pay yourself,
Mm-hmm.
because too many people put themselves out of business by paying themselves and robbing the business. It takes money to make money. And so if you spend your money, you have no money to make money with.
Okay.
So
Let me,
learning how to pay yourself is unbelievably important.
I agree, especially if you want to go to sell the business, because people that want to buy it want to look to make sure that it can support a salary to replace you. Because from what I can tell, you've worked a long time at finding your replacement, and it sounds like you found your replacement in your sons, and I think that's beautiful. I think
You know,
that's awesome.
it's the hardest thing is their personalities are different than mine, and I have to let them mold it themselves. And I can't change my son and say you have to do it my way. No, you're your own individual. You have to find your way of doing it and develop your own culture.
Uh-huh.
And it's working out. David has had some big bumps. Derek is having some big bumps, and I'm just, you try to sit there and you teach him how. And I'm not going to ever be completely out of the business. I'm the guy who does the okay. This is what you got to watch out for here. This is what you got to watch out for there. Um,
Well, whoever's running it, it's always going to be your baby.
yeah, it's just I'm just tired of the everyday grind and
Yeah.
problems with it. Um,
So what if they buy it from you and then the day after they buy it from you, they just sell it?
oh well, oh shucks.
Okay.
I mean, Derek, the one here, he mentioned to me one day, yeah, I've had a couple people say, once I get it, would I sell it to them? And I mean, that's up to him. But I could see David selling before Derek. And that's just a matter of personalities, long-term futures, everything else.
Mhm.
Um, but it's just, you never can really tell.
Mhm.
My parents, when I was in high school, I learned this years ago that they thought that I would never finish high school and I'd drop out. So I graduated. They were happy. I got an associate's degree from San Antonio College. They were ecstatic. I got a bachelor's degree from University of Houston. They couldn't believe it. And how can I be a salesman? They don't understand that. How can I run a business? How can I do all this stuff? It was, they were amazed at what I did, but it was not in their purview. It just, you know, my kids have a different view on life because of what I did. I had a different view. I mean, my parents were Depression era kids. I was a late in life child, but they both grew up through the Depression. So it was pinch every penny. We grew up in watching that as children of us. So we have a lot of that in us. And then we also have some things, and it's kind of a deal of, our house in Houston, when we sold it, I had to take a loan out to sell it. Today, people will say, well, you just let it go and let them sue you and everything. No, I paid my debt.
Mhm.
Um, and so I guess I have a different perspective on things. I'm not super aggressive. I'm very conservative on things. I know I have money in the bank if I need it, because I know what it's like when there is no money there, when you're going, how are we going to, where's the money from for the rent going to come? We only have this much money for food this week. My wife and I have gone through some times like that. So we understand, we appreciate it, and we don't get crazy on spending money.
Mhm.
Uh, it's a matter of, there's some people that buy a car every 2 years to 3 years. I have 8 or 9 work vehicles, and my wife has her car. We owe, I think, $3,500 on 2 of the work trucks.
Mhm.
And we haven't bought any vehicles in the last couple of years because of selling it to the kids. I've told them, as soon as you buy it, you need to buy a new vehicle. Well, why? Well, because you have to keep your fleet newer. You don't want to have a worn out fleet. You have to constantly replace the vehicles. But the price of vehicles in the last 3 years has been so crazy, it's not reasonable.
So, so is that how many vehicles you have in Kerrville only? The
No,
8
that's Kerrville and Waco.
Kerrville and Waco?
Yeah. And it's, we're not huge. I mean, we make money. I mean, Waco actually retracted and smaller last year, but again, that was a deal of the economy. I was talking to David one day, and he said one of his competitors up there, a big competitor, went in and laid off 40 guys in one day.
So who is the biggest competitor for David in Waco?
I don't have the slightest idea.
How about there in Kerrville for you?
It depends on if you're talking service or if you're talking new construction.
Service, home
Service wise, which is what we do, I don't know. We were the 800-pound gorilla for a long time. We've had a lot of people come up in this business. It's a very transient business. There's two guys I can think of, which I won't mention here.
Okay.
I've never mentioned your competitor's name, and so I'm not today. But there is, we don't fit everybody. And then we have things like, we had one guy who's been a long-time customer, and he needed to replace his unit, caught on fire. We gave him a price. And he says, well, this other guy is $200 less, so I'm going to go with him, but I want you to maintain it. And I'm going, that doesn't make sense. You know what our work is. Why are you doing this? But that also shows the economy.
Mm-hmm.
People are so afraid of money right now, especially older people, that they're not spending anything.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what's really hurting us, because if you can fix it and make it limp along, then why replace it? And our money is really made on replacing units. To replace units, you have to be there servicing them all the time, so they know who you are. So when it breaks, you can give them a price. Oh yeah, I'll go ahead and do it. So that's where we get most of our change outs. There are some companies who advertise every day on the TV, use us, use us, use us.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem with a lot of those guys is, to do that kind of advertising, they are paying ungodly amounts for advertising, and they have to have the markup for it. So you may pay 3 to 4 times what we do. As far as what we sell it for, they're selling it for 3 times as much. But they're not selling it for a price, they're selling it for a payment.
Mm-hmm.
And
they finance it?
Yeah. And of course, you have to offer financing today.
Have to, right?
Have to. There's some companies that don't. And I mean, they lose X amount of sales. But and in some ways, we like that because we know we're going to get paid.
Yeah.
I've had people where, once they, have it installed, says, okay, what are my payments going to be now? So, whoa. You're supposed to talk about this early on, not afterward. It's kind of like you get your car from the dealership and you drive it home, and dealer says, where's my money? And says, oh, well, I'll send you $100 a week. Maybe not.
Right.
So
do you have a hard time getting payment from people? Not usually.
Actually, our bad debt as a percentage is very low. Last year, with that one customer, that's put more companies out of business than you can imagine. I can remember in the hard times in Houston, we were successful and we were staying profitable, but we had we were doing 2 elementary schools for a big contractor. And the general contractor went out of business because 3 of his major subs went out of business.
Mm.
He had to pay the difference between their contract and what it cost to finish it. And that put them out of business. We were about the only one that finished the job that started the job.
Wow.
And you have times like that, and it hurts everybody. That's when you're out of business simply because of somebody else's mistake.
And how does it look for you now? Like the future look for you now as you look to hand the baton over to your sons here, in 10 months or so?
The economy right now scares me a little bit, but I'm more optimistic than I was 6 months ago.
Okay.
People, and again, it's the economy did not show it as much there as it did here. As a retirement community, everybody lives off their investments. And so it affected us a lot more than it did them in Waco. The weather affected both of us. And also the changes in the government policy on efficiencies has changed it, because now I'm selling, my cost on the equipment is more than I used to sell that same equipment installed with profit.
Oh, wow.
Where, we sell a system for $3,000 or $4,000 installed. Now the average price is probably $11,000 to $12,000. The 2 we just sold this morning, I think it was probably $13,000 a pop for 2 systems. That's 20 some odd $1,000 for air conditioning for the guy's house.
And so let's say that you go you said you have 8 or 9 trucks. Talking about cost here a little bit. I know as an owner, regardless of the size, you really got to monitor, keep track of. So now a truck, that truck, it can run, I don't know, let's say that a truck goes out and installs, works pretty hard. Like how much does a truck cost to operate in a month, so to speak?
It costs, first of all, about
labor.
Well, let's say $500 to $600 a month for insurance.
Okay.
For insurance.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Commercial insurance is a lot more expensive than personal insurance. You're going to have a couple $100 in gas. You're going to have a couple $100 in maintenance. Basically, it's $1,000 a month per truck in expense. And if you're using it, or if it's sitting there as a spare vehicle, and you have to have a spare. Because if you don't have a spare and a truck breaks down, you have 1 to 2 guys sitting there going, "What do we do, boss? We have work to do, but we can't get there. What do we do?" Well, okay. And so I've learned over the years I will have a vehicle that's ready to be sold or gotten rid of that I hang on to just simply to have a spare vehicle. But it's costing me X amount of money to sit there, but I've got to have it.
So if we add the guy who runs the truck that month, average employee, what, maybe $5,000 a month, $6,000? I'm not sure. What do you think?
I haven't broken it down to how, basically, I will tell you this, an employee overall, the service end of the business, my cost for the employee, including the vehicle, works out to around $105 an hour.
Including the vehicle?
Including the vehicle.
Every time it's out away from the shop, that's what it's costing.
If it's sitting in front of the shop, if he's here and it's sitting in front of the shop, it's still $105. So people are going, "Why you charge $148? I say, well, that really doesn't make me any money.
Right.
And so it's a very, service is different than if we were doing new construction, because it reduces the overhead. New construction is a lot less overhead than service, because there's a lot more in the office of fingers on a keyboard and advertising necessary for that than there is new construction. We have a lot higher markup on the service end of the business. But I have a lot less bad debt here than I did in new construction. a lot less risk here than it did in new construction. So it's
Construction, is it carried a lot in inventory?
no.
No, where's the
Construction
debt
carries
carried?
very, very little inventory because you buy per job. You carry it out there, you do it, and some people, their leftovers, they'll carry back and turn it back in. I usually just keep it in a warehouse because the next day we're going to need it on a onesie twosie, and it's easier to just go out on the shelf and pick it up than it is to send somebody and wait for an hour at a supply house to pick it up there.
What's the biggest risk then with new construction versus servicing?
Not getting paid.
That's the biggest risk?
Yeah, because you will have contractors go out of business, contractors do shady deals. We had one general contractor this many, many years ago. We got a call from the title company, said, "Hey, did this guy pay you?" He says, "Yeah, I got a check. It's already been put in the bank." It's okay. Well, I didn't realize the check he gave me was bad.
They didn't tell you
And
that either?
what?
They didn't tell you that either when they called?
Well, it was the title company and not the bank. And I found out a day or two later from my bank that his check bounced. When I called him about it, he said, "Just run through again. The money's in there now." Well, he paid us with bad checks, knowing he would get the money from the bank to pay. When that general contractor was having issues, the way I got my last money he owed me is I had a job that needed a big concrete foundation to support a large unit. And it was a unit the size bigger than a car. It was huge. So the money he owed me went into putting that slab in. So that's how I got my money back from him.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's just overall, as a percentage, it's not bad, but it's there. And all it takes is 2 or 3, "I'm not going to pay you," or "I'm out of business," and you're hurting. So, and then you have to, by the laws are getting harder and harder on my end to file liens. Because everything is out there to protect the consumer homeowner. So it's not to protect the contractor, even though it's his money, because there's too many people that aren't doing honest business. And so the government is taking the side of the consumer to protect them. It hurts the honest man when you have an unhonest consumer, let's say. But business change, laws change, and you have to keep up with it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the things that's required to be in business today is 10 times harder than it was 30 some odd years ago.
What do you think is some of the, so like if I'm looking to get into home services, HVAC industry, what would you say is probably 1 or 2 bits of advice of areas to focus on to really try to understand that's going to help be successful as I move forward, regardless of where I'm at in it, you know?
Figure out the market you're going to go after.
Got it.
You have to define it. And then you have to figure out how to get it. You have to have that worked out beforehand.
Don't ever say their names though. Learn who they are, learn how they operate, learn where they sleep, learn where they work. Learn everything you can. Learn how many sheets of toilet paper they use when they go, but never say their name.
Yeah, well, okay. The hardest thing is, and I'll use David as an example. He worked for another company when he moved to Waco for 3 years before, and he was talking to me the whole time. "Why don't you open up an office up here? Why don't you open up an office up here?" And we thought that he would bring with him X number of his old customers from the other company. He brought 1 or 2. That is all. And of course, we opened up right as COVID hit. Bad timing, because it meant you couldn't go knocking on doors. I mean, the way I started business in Kerrville is I would park my van at the end of the block. I'd walk down the block, knocking on every door, cross the street, come back, get in the van, move in block, and do it again.
Pounding the pavement.
I did that for 4 hours a day for almost a year, growing the business. Um, and that's, you have to understand that's what it takes. And if you can't do that, if you can't stand rejection, don't go in business. Um, and understand you are risking everything you own when you go into business. Uh, because if it doesn't work out, you may not be in business. Also, you better have your credit rating in order before you go in business. If your credit rating is 625, don't try to start a business because you're not going to get a credit line from every supply house. And that means that every time you go into a supply house, you have to pay them money for the product, sell it to the customer, hopefully receive payment in the next few days, if not a month or so later. So sometimes you got to figure you owe a month's worth of stuff before you get paid. There's a lot of money that's required that people starting business don't realize. So you need lots of money tucked away, and you have to live on beans and bread for a long time before you can eat any steak. This is actually the third experience I had in starting a business. I got hired one time, and a guy I had worked for in the past was going to open up an office in San Antonio. He says, "Hey, come to work for me as my San Antonio branch manager. We have this 6-story building that's going to start up. We need this other work to get going. So, hey, be my manager." Great. I did it. We were starting to get a little bit of work, and then the 6-story building got canceled. So I got a call, says, "Hey, that job got canceled. You're going to be my service manager in Houston in 2 weeks." I said, "What?" Said, "Yeah, because I'm closing that office down." So that was the first experience. The second experience was Houston was down, and the corporation that owned the corporation I was working in, which was Strauss at that time, was doing, I don't know, $10 million of work a year. So it's not a small company. And they took a whole division out of that company and moved us to this non-union company. And then we were Jutero Mechanical. Well, they'd opened up another Jutero Mechanical office in Dallas a year or two before. We were 5 months into that when they said, "You know what? I know you're supposed to start a $4 million job on Monday, but we're closing you down." Yeah.
So then it's like, well, if this is going to be my life working for others, may as well just make it my life working for myself, because I can shut myself down anytime I want then.
It's a harder decision than you think to shut yourself down, but I've thought about it a few times.
Yeah.
Um, there are days when you just get frustrated and you just say, "Screw it, I quit." Well, sometimes I'll just take a walk around the block, or there for a while, I'd go get on my motorcycle and ride it a little bit and use it for attitude adjustment and just come back and hit it again. It's owning your own business is a big frustration. It's a very big stressor. And my body is showing years of stress right now.
Sure.
So that's another reason for I want out, just because of the stress.
Well, it sounds like while the plan you had in place isn't the plan that, he may have had for you, but it sounds like the plan that was executed was brilliant. Um, I think
Uh, God's protected me a lot in all of this. I'm just going to smile and say, I've just survived it. Just done what I was supposed to do.
there you go. That's a great way to be. Um, but so 2 locations, one in Waco, one in Kerrville, been in business 38 years. Uh, for those who are listening, and I know we're not doing it live right now, all right? Donald has been an amazing person to talk to. You can tell he's got a kind, generous, honest heart. Give him a call. Uh, he'll help you out with all your HVAC and sheet metal needs. Donald, it's been wonderful talking to you. Do you have any advice for me? How can I make it better for anyone that I talk to in the future?
I will say sometimes what you want to do is you want to come up with a plan of what you're going to say beforehand. And I will use the example. For a while, we had a cable TV channel in Kerrville. And once a month, I would go on there, and after the newscast, I'd have like 15 to 20 minutes where it was a live interview. And I learned to go there with a plan. And they cringed at some people because they would come with no idea what to talk about. And I would go with a subject and I try to work on it. One time I went in with talking about ice machines, and I'd gone around and gotten ice from 5 different places. And I went there and we put it out on the table. I said, well, this is this kind of machine, and this is this, and these people need to clean their machine. These people have that. And I had people stop me in a grocery store talking about that for a long time. You have to have a plan. So when you talk and get ready for this, sometimes what you want to do is, while you did some research on me, you need to say, hey, what do you want to talk about? Or something like that, so that you can have something to talk about and you have subjects to go with. I like to talk, so I'm easy. Other people aren't going to be that way. So as far as getting this and going, come up with what you want to say, or, how did you, questions haven't asked before. And how did you grow the business? What are suggestions that you have for other people starting their business? Get people to think about that beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
I thought about that beforehand. I've been thinking about, because we talked about this 5 days ago. So I've been kind of thinking, well, we'll do this, do that, and prepare. Because if you're prepared, but if they aren't prepared.
Right. Well, you were very easy to talk to, right? I mean, you brought up a lot of things. I was trying to choose the right spots to ask more questions, right? So let me ask you this, and you're talking about growing. Part of my plan, one of the things I wanted to ask you was the difference between growing versus scaling. And I know that you've got, 1 foot out the door, and, you've got your eye back, you're keeping your eye on everything, have you ever thought about the difference between that? And have you ever thought about scaling versus growing?
For me, it's always been a growth deal. And I guess that's just because of my background and how I get it. I mean, I've thought about what it would take to really scale as far as scaling, as far as get the business to blow up and go. I couldn't do it in Kerrville. It's too small a market. I have a substantial hunk of the pie here. The only way to get bigger is to make your pie bigger. Waco is a big pie, which we have a very small slice out of. Waco demographically is better for us. Kerr County and all the counties that are contiguous to Kerr have one licensed air conditioning contractor for every 1,000 residents. McClendon County, where Waco is, has, last time I looked, about one licensed air conditioning contractor for every 2,500 people. It's a lot more viable market.
So what I mean buy a HVAC company. I mean, go out and buy several and scale that way versus, organic growth where you go and open up a business in a market and develop it, open up a business in a market, develop. I mean, why not buy 2 or 3 businesses in a market, combine them?
Okay, my question to you then on that is, why buy somebody else's problem?
Well, because I would say the question, I mean, if I could answer it, I would say, that's one perspective on how to look at it. Another perspective is you have 38 years of perfecting a system. And I'm not saying go in and buy any old company that has problems. I'm saying go in and just look to partner with, even maybe a cashless merger where you're growing the pie. You might not own 100% of the pie anymore, but the pie is definitely bigger, and a bigger pie is worth more. Like, just options, right? Like, those are just things I'm thinking about.
I watched this happen, and I will give you an example. For Bernie is 45 miles from here. A company that I watched being formed and born back in 1972, 73, sometime in that time frame. The son, actually the daughter of one of the original owners, and her husband sold that business here 2 years ago. The culture of the business that came in, while it was similar, was quite different, to the point of basically there's hardly anybody left there that when they bought the company. When you buy a company in our industry here, you want to look at the employees, because that's what you're buying, and their customer list. If those employees go to another company, if they're really good employees, they're going to have people follow them, and or you're going to create your own competition. In Bernie, they created their own competition. There was a core group from there that went in business because of how the new business was handled. So
let me ask you about the owners that sold the business. How are they doing? How are they feeling about everything?
I don't have the slightest idea. I haven't talked to them.
But I wonder if they're happy with it or if they're not happy with the deal. I wonder how they feel about it. And then, at that point, it's not their problem anymore,
I don't know. I know several guys who've sold their businesses.
Uh-huh.
The problem with that, of the two people that I was closest to that sold their businesses, one received all their money. One of them was the biggest plumber in town. He was the 800-pound gorilla plumber.
Mm-hmm.
The guy that bought it was talking to me as far as buying me out and me going into them. And I'm very happy I didn't, because he went out of business a year or two later. Because while he could run a multi-million-dollar corporation, he could not run a service business in a small town.
Right.
And so the guy who sold it got a good portion of his money, but not all of his money. Another guy sold his air conditioning company here, and he got a good portion of his money, but not all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because X amount is you're paid and X amount comes in time. And so
I think that can be negotiated, really.
It can be negotiated. Now, when you're being bought out by some of these huge conglomerates that are buying multiple companies in multiple places, because when the guy in Bernie got bought out, there was a guy in Blanco that got bought out at the same time by the same company, and two in San Antonio. So they're buying massive groups of people all at the same time. So they bring in a system that's successful, but it may not match the market. It may not match the people. So I don't know. I mean, have I thought about it? Yeah, we got offered. David found a guy in Waco wanting to sell out, and I looked at it and I says, no, all we're doing is buying his name. And I didn't know how good his name was, and I didn't want to do it.
Do you remember who that was?
I remember the guy's face. I can't remember his name.
Okay.
And in this business, it's too easy to start it on your own and have a couple years of no income or loss to build a business. And to me, in my mind, that is a better opportunity and a smarter move than buying someone else out.
So what's the growth plan? It would be to get a license. Like if I get my license, my HVAC license, and then I start my own little LLC. I own a job, right? Like a one-man band. Is that the goal then, to hire somebody to train with, to then meet my standards, and then have them go out with somebody and teach somebody else kind of how to do it, and then grow it kind of that way? Is that how to do it?
That's the kind of the way I would do it, but then I'm going to muck this up.
Okay,
I'm still a sole proprietor.
Oh, well, sure, but you're not.
I have never incorporated.
No, never.
Never.
So you're not an LLC or an incorporate. You are It
It
is,
is Donald E. Kampfenkel, DBA, D&D Mechanical.
well, heck yes. That's awesome.
So, because a lot of the safeties a corporation owned are no longer there,
Mm,
it's a harder accounting process if you are an LLC than it is a sole proprietor.
hmm
Um, some of the laws are changing again where it's leaning more that way. As selling it, it's easier to sell a corporation than it is selling a sole proprietorship.
hmm
Because in selling the corporation, it's a very defined thing of what is being sold.
hmm
Uh, I'm selling my name, if you will. So it's a little different process. Uh, this goes back, what are your end goals? What do you want to do? If you want to build a business to sell it, you want to incorporate, you want to do a lot of things. You're going to do one set of things. Before you go in business, you have to figure out where you want to be in 5 to 10 years. And are you going to be happy with that? And if you're not, then rethink your goal. There's many a time I wished I'd gone ahead and stayed a salesman for a bigger company, because you collect your paycheck and you go home at the end of the day and you don't have to worry about, can we make payroll next Friday or anything else. It's a deal of life is simpler and easier.
hmm
And you're more mobile and agile. You can go on vacations easier. There's a lot of things that are better and different. Um, Plan ahead, think ahead, and understand nothing is in concrete,
And
because
how important do you think having a mentor might be for somebody who's getting going, or a coach?
super. Okay. You need to have somebody that you can emulate. You have to have a boss that you want to emulate, or as a person. This is my goal. This is what I want to be. Um, because if you want to be the bright, shining person in the center of your empire and you have nothing to model after, you're going to be a disaster. Um, you have to start with an idea of what you want to be and then grow upon that. You have to have some idea of what it is you're supposed to be. And you need to have enough experience to have seen that in the past.
Where's the best place to find that? I don't want to go work at another company. I want to start my own. Where's the best place to
Um,
find?
that's hard. I mean, okay, one way you can't get the experience I got by not working for another company. But David was part of one thing there in Waco, which I got him out of because of the expense and the time issue. Where, well, okay, he was part two. One thing is you'll have business groups that feed each other,
Okay.
networking. That works good, and you can meet some good people that way. The problem is you're all small, young, and hungry. Um, you can go to business classes. I'll go back to education is very important. I had one class in college that was a business class that I got more out of than I can unbelievably shake a stick at. But let me explain something. His license plate on his car was SO, and the license plates on his wife's car were Exxon.
All right.
This guy was way up in that, and he was retiring, and so he was teaching business at the University of Houston. This guy was smart. Uh, and so you need to find, I wish I'd taken more classes in that. But let's turn this around. I found what I really loved as a senior in college, but I was burnt out in college and didn't want to continue on. If I would redo it all, I know now what I wanted to do, and that was city planning.
Okay.
And that would have been, I loved it. It was interesting. It was quite unique and quite, but like I say, at that point, I was a senior in college. I had been going to school full time, working part time, living in the 7th Ward in Houston and sharing a 1-bedroom apartment with 2 of the guys. I was a pauper. And
Sounds cozy.
a little too cozy at times.
I bet.
Um, I mean, that's how I got through college, and I paid for it. When I was done with college, it was paid for. Because I would take a loan out from the university at the beginning of the semester, and the deal was you had to have it paid off by the end of the semester to get credit for the class. And so that's how I financed the last 2 years of my college education.
Nice.
But I got through it, and I was debt free.
From pauper to sole proprietor, and now the president of his own little empire.
My own little empire, if you want to call it president. That just means that I'm responsible for when Doofus Butt makes the wrong turn and bashes the side of his truck in. It comes out of my hiney.
I oftentimes look at business owners as it's almost counting how many mouths you have to feed. Like that's the amount of responsibility or pressure I think, you can put on yourself sometimes. I have 5, 10 employees, whatever, and I put the responsibility on myself to make sure that, you know, the money keeps coming in so that we can keep paying them, so they can keep eating, so they can keep having a house over their head. And it's a lot. So I
I
admire
pray
that.
for that every day. Lord, give us our daily bread so that they can earn the money, earn a living, and feed their families, and that so I can do it. I'm providing them a job, and it's a way for them to earn a living and me to earn a living. And so every day I'm asking for that daily bread.
That's awesome. And it sounds as though you have done much with the talents you were given. And so keep
I've
it
been
up.
lucky too. God looks after little idiots like me.
My thing is God has a sense of humor. He's a partier and he's got a sense of humor. And that sense of humor, it comes at the most trying times, you know.
Understand why you're going through the issue you're going through, and understand that there's a bigger plan than you. And sometimes bad times are to grow you, and sometimes bad times are because of what you have done. So smile at good times, give him credit for the good, and keep on going. And
Grow
life
closer to
is
him in the
good.
bed.
When you get to my age, I'm fat, happy. I can tell you the woes of my life. This eye hardly works. This leg hardly works. I wake up hurting every day. Life is tough. Get over it, man. I've had a good life. I'm happy.
Well, I think attitude's important, and you're displaying that now. So, again, Donald, thank you so much. We'll have to do this again if you don't mind. I know it went a little bit over the 15 minutes I had promised you in that initial phone call we had. So, I do appreciate that.
No
Uh,
problem.
but we'll have to do it again if you don't mind, because I'd like to follow up with the transition, see how that's going a little bit later.
Once you start putting these out, I want to see what some other people have done, and that will help me on what I would do and say. But we just had a natural conversation, and that's the whole point. Just have a natural conversation, and we see where it goes.
I don't even think that I said my opening lines because I think you came in hot, ready to go, right? I was supposed to say, I was supposed to go like, hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Ucan2 Podcast, podcast where we talk everything entrepreneur and business. My name's Eric Cantu. I am your host, and thank you for joining. We have a wonderful guest with us today. Uh, he has been in business for almost 40 years, sole proprietor, 3 wonderful sons. He's got family business, and he's just been killing it. Donald, thanks for being here with us, founder of D&D Mechanical.
Eric, it's been fun. Thank you for calling.
Thank you, sir. Good luck to you, and we'll stay in touch.
Okay, thank you.
Take
See
care.
ya. Bye.